Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the case of Tecramuigai. Now her case is quite controversial and it divides people either one way or the other. Now cases which have the possibility in them, they are usually difficult to solve because you don't know whether it was an accident or whether it was actually intentional. The possibility there is the element which causes difficulty in the case. Now you remember the one with Samuel actually fell off a balcony and nobody knows what happened to him. Was he murdered? Was he pushed? What really happened? Did he jump? Nobody knows what happened to Samuel that night. And in this case we have a staircase. Was she pushed down the stairs or did she fall down the stairs? And that's the question that still hasn't been answered. It's still under investigation. It has an open inquest and I'm going to include some of the proceedings of the inquest and what people have testified in that inquest here. So that's the case today, and with that said, let's begin. Tecramuigai was born to Tabitha and Joseph Karanja. She was the last born. She was the baby of the family, described as being a jovial, easygoing person, friendly, very down to earth, respectful even of other people's cultures, welcoming, the kind of person you'd easily call family as soon as you met her. So from what I read about her, she was quite loved by her family and friends, which goes on to show the kind of person she really was. She drew in people and made them feel at home. She worked as the director of strategy and innovation at Karachi Breweries Limited. Now on to Omar Lali. Omar Lali, there's not much information about him. He's described as a 54-year-old beach boy. Now I would love to explain to you who a beach boy is, but I don't know. Maybe he was some sort of a lifeguard or something at the beach. Yeah, so his occupation, he's a fisherman and a boat operator. He has been married thrice and has about 5 children. One of his ex-wives lives in the UK with their 2 daughters. Another ex-wife is in the Netherlands with 1 child, and a Swahili wife who has 2 daughters as well. I'm not sure if he's divorced from all of them, but I could assume that that's the case since he was dating Tecra. He has traveled quite extensively from Africa all the way to Europe. He's actually lived in London for 15 years. Definitely well traveled. So that's just about Omar. Now you might be wondering, these are 2 different people from 2 different locations, 2 different worlds. Now how did they meet? Now from what I understand and from what I hear is that the rich only mingle with the rich. They attend schools only meant for the rich. That means they'll grow up being friends with only the rich. They attend social events and mingle. That means they'll end up only marrying the rich. So for 2 people coming from 2 different worlds, how did their paths cross? Well, let me tell you, fate is a mysterious thing. It does what it wants. So they first crossed paths at Peponi Hotel in Lamu. Essentially, they passed each other while they were going about their daily lives. Now they didn't even say hi to each other. Their eyes kind of locked a little, and Tecra was sold. So not so much so for Omar. It wasn't really love at first sight. He was just kind of like, stranger, and he went on about his business. It was actually Tecra who was about Omar after he left and asked to be connected to him. So they gave Omar a call and he was told that there's a lady who wants to meet you, and he went over. They kind of got to know each other and Omar gave an account of how the evening went. He said that during their conversation, Tecra said to him that she felt like she could trust him. That tells you that she was really into him and she felt safe there. So they spent the night together and that's how their romance started. Now they would visit different places together and they just enjoyed each other's company. But there was trouble in paradise, as there usually is, isn't it? The family were not keen on her dating Omar. Tecra introduced Omar to the family when they both visited Naivasha. So they visited Naivasha and Tecra introduced Omar to the family. So the family were not quite thrilled with the whole idea, and I think it's because they of the age gap between Tecra and Omar. Omar, as we've said, is 24 and Tecra is 29. So that's quite a big age gap. It shouldn't be a big deal, you'd think, in this day and age, but what do I know? So they didn't like Omar. One relative even described the meeting as awful, as Omar apparently was shouting at their first meeting, and then they didn't like it. They were meeting for the first time, so why was he shouting? So right away they told her they didn't approve of her relationship to Omar, and Omar said, this is Omar's account. Omar said that the family actually called him a beach boy and an al-Shabaab. He thought it was quite disrespectful, and I kind of agreed to his, because they judged him based on his looks. And calling him an al-Shabaab, isn't that Islamophobia, isn't it? But definitely something there. That's prejudice, isn't it? But that aside, that happened. Now, anyway, the family didn't approve and they got into an argument with Tecra. Parents telling her to break it off, and Tecra was not giving in. She wasn't going to let Omar go. She told them that this is the person, I love, basically, and it's up to you whether you want to accept him or not, but I'm dating this man. It got so bad that Omar had to leave, Naivasha, and he went back to Lamu, leaving Tecra behind. Well, that just made things boil over, and according to Omar, Tecra told her parents that they can have everything back, their cards, and stuff, privileges that she was given, and that she was giving them up, and she was going after Omar, and that they should let her live her life. So she boarded a matatu for the first time after a very long time. She boarded a matatu all the way to Lamu and went to visit Omar, went to stay there. So they first started staying, they stayed together at a hotel, then they later moved to a cottage for privacy reason. And apparently Tecra was quite a private person. That's why they moved to a cottage. Now, the family feud continued. They argued over Tecra's relationship until finally, seeing that Tecra was quite insistent and she wasn't given in, they allowed the couple to date. Now, things got a lot better for both families. They had get-togethers on both sides. Tecra would visit, Lali's relatives, and his relatives would visit Tecra's home in Naivasha, and everything was a-okay. They even had started planning on how they were going to settle down. Omar had proposed and they started planning their future together. One report says that they were a month away to tying the knot. Now, let's get to what happened to Tecra that night. Now, on to April 20th, the day that everything changed for both Tecra and Omar. April 28th at around 5:45 a.m., Omar hears a thud in the house. He hears a thud. He was sleeping. He hears a thud and he wakes up to investigate. He walks all the way up to the stairs and sees Tecra lying at the bottom of the stairs, face up. She was hurt. Now, she wasn't moving. She was unconscious and blood was coming out of her mouth and her ear. Omar calls his brother Kuswe. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Omar calls his brother Kuswe and tells him to come over. Now, Kuswe gives a contradictory statement later, but we'll definitely get into that. Kuswe rushes to his brother's house and sees Tecra at the bottom of the stairs. They decide to take her to the hospital. So they call the in-law Ali, who comes with two other people, and they carry her to the dispensary, Shella dispensary. There it's clear to the doctors that her case is serious, so they try and stabilize her condition. Now, they give her something to reduce the alcohol levels in her system. So once they get her condition stabilized and under control, the doctors there advise the men to send her to the hospital. Because she was at a dispensary, they couldn't handle a case there, so they tell the men to, take her to hospital. So the men hire a hospital bed and they carry Tecra, as she couldn't walk as of yet. They carried Tecra in in it and they take her to King Fahd Hospital via boat. Now, during the boat journey, those who were with her would say that she was talking but her speech was incoherent. She wasn't making much sense. They reach there and the doctors get to work on her immediately. She starts doing better. Now, she would even, be seen as sitting up on a bed and, with a drip in her hand, and, she would even visit the washroom while walking on her own 2 feet. So to those who were there, it seemed as if she was getting better. Now, Omar contacted Tecra's mother and told her what happened. She arranged for her daughter to be transferred to Nairobi Hospital. She was airlifted to Nairobi, and the doctors there then started working on her. Now, during the journey, when she was being airlifted, the doctors there, they would say she was quite aggressive, didn't want to be touched, and her speech didn't make much sense. She definitely was alive and breathing. She was quite conscious when she was being airlifted. Now, here it gets murky with finger pointing all over the place. The Nairobi hospital blames King Fahd for not providing sufficient information about Tecra's condition, definitely saying that things would have gone differently if they had managed her condition well and provided them with the information early so that they could treat her case with urgency. They said that this never happened, and this delayed, Tecra getting help that she needed early. But when they got to the hospital, they got to work, they started working on her right away. Unfortunately, she ended up slipping into a coma and she would later pass away on May 2nd. You're probably wondering, where's Omar in all of this? Well, Omar was with her all the way, starting all the way from the house to the dispensary to King Fahd and all the way up to Nairobi Hospital. Now, there he kind of gets barred off by the family not to see her. They gave excuses that due to COVID, not everyone could go, could be there, not everyone could see her. So he just gave up and went back to Lamu. He would call later and was told that she was doing okay, that the doctors, seeing that she's progressing well. But that wasn't really the case, was it now? So right after it was confirmed that Tecra had passed away, police rushed to where Omar was and arrested him. They didn't tell him what he was being charged with, why he was being arrested. It was only at the police station that he found out later from the police that Tecra had passed away. So the police retain him and start their investigation. They question him about what happened that morning, and he tells them a story. And the story is like this. Evening before, they were both drinking. They drank until he blacked out. His words, not mine. He blacked out, he dozed off. Now, it's unclear whether it was the same for Tecra. We don't know. But early morning, he hears the third, goes to investigate, and he sees Tecra at the bottom of the stairs. And he rushes her to the hospital. Another report says that he contradicted himself later, saying that she tripped in the bathroom and fell. We can't confirm this, but on the interview with KTN, he maintains his story that she fell down the stairs. So because the police suspected Omar of being involved in Tecra's death, they applied to keep him in custody. The courts accepted this and granted them 21 days for them, to conclude their investigation. Now, after the 21 days were over, they had to release Lali because the detectives weren't able to find any substantial evidence to connect Lali to Tecra's death. Now, he was released on a 300,000 shillings bond. On July 13th, he was then charged with murder again, but then again on the 16th July, his charges were dropped, and the DPP applied to terminate the case because probably he didn't find any evidence that connected Lali to Tecra's death, and he opted for an open inquest so that, because the family really wanted to know what really happened to Tecra, he opted for an open inquest. That inquest is still ongoing. Now, Omar is set to testify in it, but so far a bunch of people have testified. Under the inquest, a lot of things are in here, twists and turns that have been revealed later. To two pathologists that have gone over the autopsy report, they argue that she had multiple head injuries, all of which could not have been caused by one impact. They say that the injuries could be blunt force injuries or injuries caused by a possible fall. So they're not definitively saying that it was caused by blunt force injuries, but they're suggesting there's a possibility that she was hit before she fell down the stairs. And they're also saying that, her injuries could also have been caused by her falling down the stairs. So that's what they're saying. It's not conclusive. They can't really definitively say that she fell down the stairs and that's where her injuries are from, or she was hit before she fell. So, but they're suggesting that she could have been hit before she fell down the stairs. That's what they are suggesting as of now. And as you've noticed already that the autopsy results were inconclusive, the ones before that were released before, they were inconclusive. They're not able to really tell whether she was hit by an object or she fell down the stairs. They also say that there was a cut on her head which was not consistent with a normal fall. Such an injury is caused by an object with an external force. So they're trying to claim that she may have been hit by something before she fell down the stairs. They argue that if it was a normal fall, there would be more bruises on the rest of her body, but there were none. She had a swollen arm and an injury to her knee. The ones who airlifted Tecra also claimed that apart from her swollen arm, they didn't see any other injury on her. Now, doesn't that suggest that she fell? Because if she was attacked, there could be possible more injuries because you're attacking someone, isn't it? But no more injuries were on her, but I don't know. So they argue that if you fall down the stairs, you definitely tend to hurt yourself a lot. There should be more injuries on a person who falls down the stairs. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think you can regulate how a person falls or what a normal fall is. I mean, if I'm falling, I could hit something and then cut my head, isn't it? Or I could, because especially if a person is intoxicated, you can't really regulate how they fall down the stairs. They're not going to have that. They don't have the wits about them to tell them to grab onto something to stop their fall, isn't it? So I don't know. But they say a normal fall, so I don't know what a normal fall is. But that's what they say, that if you fall down the stairs, you should have more injuries on the rest of your body. But I don't know whether that can be regulated. Humans are different, Yeah, so Tecra's clothes had blood stains on her shoulder because, she was bleeding from her ear. So there were blood stains on, the shoulder of her top there. There's a point in the inquest where one of the doctors was quizzed about a temporal bone, that's an inner bone apparently, and he was asked whether it was possible to break it if someone fell. He disagreed, saying that it's impossible to break an inner bone from a mere fall. It kind of is suggesting that this was caused by a blunt object. Though the pathologist on Omar's side disagrees with this, she says she didn't observe such an injury to the temporal bone on Tecra. So the pathologists don't agree, but two of them agree that she fell and probably, most possibly, that she might have been hit before she fell. but we don't know. They don't agree with each other. So my question is, if she was hit by a blunt object, where is the object? Why didn't the police find it? Where was it hidden? Now onto the toxicology report. Now here it gets a little murky, because some say that there's no alcohol in her system, and others say that there was alcohol, because the doctors who attended to her say that she had an alcohol breath. Possibly why they couldn't find that much alcohol in his system is because they had given her something at the dispensary to bring down her alcohol levels, right? So I don't know here, it's quite controversial. So the autopsy report is controversial, it's inconclusive. The toxicology report is another controversial feature in this case. So what's the answer here? Another thing that came up during the inquest was that it was discovered that Tecra had been sending money to Omar through M-Pesa and bank transactions. They say the amount is up to 1.2 million shillings. She sent the money in the months between the months of August 2019 all the way through to March 2020. Tecra's personal assistant said that she got a call from Tecra instructing her to send the money to Omar. She was confused by this, because why was she supposed to send money to Omar instead of Tecra? So the mother testified that she got worried when she found out that Tecra, who's a young, lady, is sending money to an older man, and she said she was quite concerned of that when she found out. But Tecra left everything behind when she went to visit Lolly. She had told her, parents that she was giving back her cards and her privileges, so the only way she could get money was through her job, isn't it? That she was getting paid for. So for me, I think that the money could have been used by both of them during that time when they were staying at the cottage. She needed money, right, to use, and I probably think that's why the PA got a call from her to send money through to Omar. But then again, she had her own account, or maybe because she gave the cards back, I don't know. But I don't know, that's where we really don't know. But I would assume that they were using the money, both of them. I wouldn't say that Omar was exclusively the one using it, unless Tecra was far away from Omar. But even if she sent money to Omar, that's not so bad. I mean, every other relationship
has its own dynamic. Some are where one person is the one sending the money and the other, it's either both of them are sending each other money. So I don't think it's that bad, but maybe they could be trying to establish motive here.
Now the driver at the inquest gave another twist to the story. He said that Omar was quite insecure and possessive. Am I saying that correctly? Possessive in the relationship. That he would often abuse Tecra. That they did get into a lot of arguments stemming from his insecurity. He said that he never wanted people around them. He always wanted to be left alone with Tecra. He would get out of control. It would get out of control when they were on trips, and accuse the driver of plotting to take Tecra away from him, and then threaten that he would do something bad to him if he ever did. They got into fights a lot, and the driver would be the one to intervene. So that's what came out. I'm not sure whether they're trying to establish motive here, whether he would be the one to do this during that night. Maybe they had a fight and he pushed her. I don't know where they're going with this, whether they're trying, about focusing on the relationship part. I don't know how that helps, but maybe they're trying to establish motive here. But they do fight. Fighting doesn't really make you a murderer. Other couples do fight as well, don't they? That doesn't really necessarily make you a murderer, isn't it? My question is here, if he pushed Tecra, My only question would be why? What was his motive? Let's go with this. If he's a social climber, as people said, I mean, if I was a social climber, I would want the one supporting my life to live. I wouldn't want them to die. But what do I know? Maybe he pushed her when he was drunk. I don't know. So I don't know why he would have motive. Even if he was sent money, I mean, maybe if there was a life insurance and he was the beneficiary, I would understand motive there. But even if the money's there, I don't know whether that would be his motive. But he was sent the money. I don't know. Another controversy here. Kuswe also provided a different statement during the inquest, saying that he came over, he saw Tecra, at the base of the stairs, laying face up, and Omar looked confused and worried. Now, this is not what he said earlier. Earlier, he had stated that he came over, Omar did not say a word to him, he only pointed to a Tecra, was lying before carrying her to their room. He denied, obviously, ever making this statement. So that's another controversy there. I don't know why he would change his story here, but as time goes by, your memory gets foggy as well. So this story has its own twists and turns, and I want to believe that he's innocent, but I cannot be sure. Maybe we're just trying to crucify him, because of his unconventional relationship with Tecra, maybe by his looks, or maybe the family just didn't like him, or maybe he could be the one who pushed her that night, or maybe everything was an accident and he wasn't really responsible for it. I don't know whether we'll ever get to know what happened that night. Humans, they're very hard to trust, so I don't know. And when I watched the documentary that the KTN did about him, they said, he was talking about that night, and when he said that he blacked out, I felt cheated. I didn't believe him. The way he describes it doesn't. It feels suspicious to me, or maybe I'm just reading into it so much. But I felt, that he was possibly not telling the truth. But that could just be me. So it has a lot of twists and turns, and I'm hoping that they get to the bottom of this and that the truth is uncovered. Still, it's an open inquest and he hasn't yet testified, but it will be interesting to see what he says on that day. So that's it from me today.